Okay, I did not want to get into a long thing about Reverend Jackson, the senator from Washington. He has a long history in not only civil rights, issues of racial justice, but he has been perhaps the leading national spokesperson, a supporter of grassroots organizations, unions, women's groups, you name it. He has been there for poor people, and I think we're really honored to have the Reverend Jesse Jackson speak to us now.
The Reverend Jesse Jackson speaking on the Gulf Crisis at the MIT Teach-In for Peace in the Middle East, here live on WMBR Cambridge 88.1 FM. The Reverend Jackson is now going around shaking the hands of all the members of the MIT initiative that line the podium right now. They're holding effigies, emaciated effigies of what appear to be Saudi Arabian women. And here he is to speak to us. The crowd gives him a standing ovation.
Let me express to you tonight my sincere appreciation to the organizers of this event for allowing me to participate in this historic event, which could literally save the whole world. Tonight, you are at the center of the universe and can determine its course by tilting the axis toward peace and away from war. I want to announce that this week MIT is inaugurating the MIT Peace and Justice Center. You'll be called upon to join in efforts for peace. There'll be a whole week of activities where there will be organizing and the education of people against war in the Gulf, pursuing alternatives to war. Tonight, there will be the inauguration of the Peace and Justice Center immediately upon the conclusion of this program. We urge you tonight, when we will have finished, to march with us to the building next door that the whole nation might see, and other campuses might grasp your spirit and make centers for peace and justice on every campus around this nation, yes, around this world. You are to be congratulated. To those of you who are in here tonight, and to thousands of others who are connected around this campus, your concern and your sense of desperation is a contagious spirit that must grip our nation and our world. Tonight we must congratulate Senators Kennedy and Kerry for their vote on this past Saturday. When we think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., tonight is the eve of his 62nd birth date. Tomorrow should be a day for worldwide celebration of the birth date of the apostle of nonviolence and peace, not the day for showdown, for world war, while we hold our breath, bated breath, of world peace. Peace and justice are indivisible. as we pursue this quest to change our nation's political mindset, as I painfully reflect upon the voting this past Saturday, we lost the vote in the Senate by the margin of defected Democrats. One Republican Party is enough. Sanctions are working. What's the rush for the artificial date, January the 15th? There was no cutoff date to end apartheid in South Africa. We have restrictions on South Africa and sanctions on Iraq. And even those weak restrictions imposed by our Congress, called sanctions, are being circumvented by President Bush. We're importing South African iron and steel into our country. We do not need it. American iron and steel workers are unemployed, and South Africa does not deserve the market. And yet, there is no cutoff date wherein Nelson Mandela might have the right to vote. January the 15th, we're not about to be attacked on tomorrow. Vital resources to America are not about to be cut off on tomorrow. It's an artificial date with destiny, driven by ego needs and political needs, not national security needs. The artificial date reflects not national threat, but anxiety about the fragility of this business alliance called a worldwide coalition. If we truly support UN resolutions, which is a new idea for this administration, Mr. Reagan, Mr. Bush would not pay UN dues in the 1980s. They tried to impose sanctions on the UN. If we support the UN, let's pay them the $600 million that we owe them in back dues, so the UN can be used in Liberia and other nations around the world where it is needed. The UN has not imposed these sanctions. There has been no vote before the United Nations. 26 nations in the UN voted. China, which represents 1/4 of the human race, did not vote. The Japanese offer some yen, the Germans some marks, but no people. Others are in it because of debt forgiveness, or more weapons, or grants, or intimidation. It's not that we fear attack from Iraq tomorrow. We fear the fragile business alliance may not hold if we shift from deterrence to offense. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his legacy is a call to action, a call to leadership, to not follow opinion polls, but to mold opinion. Vanity calls us to popularity. Politics calls us to expediency, but rather it calls us to do the right thing. Bold leadership, new direction, and action. The issue in the Middle East tonight should be the goal to get Iraq out of Kuwait, not the date. The focus must be the goal, not the date. The bombing would kill thousands of Kuwaitis, Iraqis, and Americans. It would invite world seduction into war. The bombs fall on the Iraqis. If they hit at Israel, it will respond in its interest. To do so, it must fly over Jordan and Syria. They will respond. The war will not just be fought in the Middle East, but expressions of it economically and militarily will be felt around the whole world. We're discussing a world war, not a limited strategic war, a limited surgical war. We could not employ surgical war against Panama, and they didn't have an air force. And for those who believe in surgical bombing, let them hold the building. Let them and their children hold the building while the bomber takes the building away and leave them standing. For those who believe in surgical wars and hits. If we win the bombing war, we then must remain and occupy that which we bomb. We must then occupy Kuwait and Iraq, as we're now doing Panama. If the war takes place, the price of oil will go up, the price of blood will go down. The many will die, the few will prosper. Worldwide economic inflation. Governments will be destabilized. Terror will strike the world. MIT, do the world a favor. Don't just protest war. Make war less likely by committing yourself to study war no more. In the final analysis, we do what we study. That's why the ancient prophet Isaiah urged us centuries ago to study war no more and beat our swords in the plowshares. Make our weapons of war weapons of development. Swords in the plowshares spears and the pruning hooks. Isaiah talked about conversion. From war build-up to peace build-up. Thousands of years ago. Even then they recognized the futility of war. War represents moral exhaustion, intellectual bankruptcy, when there's no thoughts left, when there is no hope left. We fight to reflect our emptiness and our lack of vision. If you study teaching, you may not have a job in school, but whenever you go down the street and see children going towards school, lesson plans come in your mind. You kind of do what you study. If you study law, you may choose not to be a practicing lawyer, but whenever you see a judge rap his gavel, the sense of law that you've studied begins to come out. Somehow you want to do what you studied. If you study music, you may not be a practicing musician, but every time you hear the sound, criticisms come in your mind. If you study medicine, you may not be a practicing physician, but whenever you pass a hospital, whenever you hear the sound of ambulances, and whenever you see blood anywhere, there is a pull to do what you've studied. And so if you study war and use your mind, your brilliant scientific minds, to make these weapons, then you lay the basis for the use of them. We must have the moral judgment, the good sense to study war no more and beat our swords in the plowshares. The greatest threat to our environment tonight is nuclear weapons. While there's understandable concern about Saddam Hussein may get a nuclear weapon, there are 300 to 400 nuclear weapons already in the Persian Gulf tonight. And plan A is to strike and strike quickly with awesome power. If plan A fails and there's a counter strike, what is plan B? Would we lose a war? Would we accept heavy casualties without using plan B? We are close to a nuclear war ushered in by an artificial date with destiny. Dr. King's birth date. Maybe his vision, his prophecy will be the saving grace, the redemption of our nation and the salvation of our world tonight. I remember, along with a group of staff members, being with him on his last birthday. We did not know it would be his last birthday, January 15th, 1968. We did not realize that April 4th, 1968 would be his death date. His last date on earth was spent focusing on organizing unorganized workers, economic justice for the least of these, social justice for everybody. But on that birth date, I remember it so well. That morning he had breakfast at home with his nuclear family, his wife and children. He came to church around 10 o'clock in his work clothes, There we had with us a small group of whites and Hispanics and Native Americans and people with whom we'd never worked before, organizing a poor people's campaign. He knew a way to end racial tensions was to raise up the issue of economic justice and make everybody secure. He was organizing a poor people's campaign, preparing for another march on Washington. We spent that morning, as you honor Dr. King and as you celebrate his birthday, here's how he spent his own birthday. With family, at church, organizing a national campaign for a job and income for everybody, reviving a war on poverty and not a war on the poor. A friend came in around 1 o'clock with a cake. We stopped, lit candles, we laughed, we ate the cake. And then around 2:30, a workshop on ways to end the war in Vietnam. A focus on how to end the war, the study of war, and change national priorities and usher in world peace. He spent his own last birthday, family, war on poverty, and world peace. You can do no less tomorrow than to focus on racial justice, social justice, and peace. Because justice and peace are indivisible. You can't have a peace movement to save us from war in the Persian Gulf and ignore the lack of racial justice, the gender exploitation that's taking place at home. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a broader focus than that. We must be concerned tonight. Infant mortality for African American babies is likened unto Bangladesh, an impoverished third world country. The black adults die 7 years earlier than whites. Lives of stress. The incarceration for young African American males is 4 times greater than that of South Africa. The president would dare veto a civil rights bill in 1990 using race as bait, but in reality, that veto was against women and workers, the physically disabled, Hispanics and blacks as well. That the result of lack of life options. On the one hand, the jails are full. On the other hand, 30% of the ground troops in the Persian Gulf are African American. 45% black and brown, 75% black, brown, and poor. Those who made the judgment on Saturday have no children there.
Jesse Jackson live on WMBR Cambridge.
And because of lack of racial justice, if the war breaks out, the black and the brown and the poor will burn first in the Gulf, and their parents will freeze first because of economic inflation at home. Some Republican senator said to me on Saturday, as I talked with him about D.C. statehood, Jesse, now you know I'm not for quotas. It's a hard sell. And the fact that if you get D.C. State, you probably have 2 Democratic senators. And maybe if there was some chance of 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, it may be more plausible. I said, are you suggesting that we have 50% Democrats and 50% Republicans in the Persian Gulf? Are you saying we got too many poor, too many black, too many brown in the Persian Gulf? If our youth are not there based upon their political party, then why impose that rule in our quest for self-determination at home? Racial justice. Because in the real sense, unless we end slavery for blacks, we cannot speak of a suffrage movement for women. In some real sense, the quest for justice and peace are indivisible. Racial justice. It tears up our coalition at home that's needed for the peace movement for our world. Jesse Helms this year used the shaking white hand theory. White hand about to get a job, shaking, and as was about to get the job, the strong black hand pushed it back. If that strong black hand had a basketball in it, its name was Michael Jordan, it's all right. If that strong black hand had a football in it and its name was Bo Jackson, it would be all right. If that strong black hand had a rifle in it pointed at Iraq, it's all right. But if it's trying to go to college to get a job, it's seen as a national threat. The fact is, our jobs, we lost 3 million jobs in the 80s, 800,000 family farmers. They did not go from white to black. They did not go from male to female. We should not have races threatened and fighting each other on our campuses. We should not have men threatened by women and whites by blacks and browns. We should be expanding our options and not fighting each other. Where did the jobs go? They didn't go to abandoned urban ghettos and barrios. The shoe industry from the New England area went to the Far East, not to the ghetto. The Nike tennis shoes that Michael Jordan wears, the Reebok shoes, the LA Gear shoes, are made in Taiwan and South Korea for $10 a pair and sold here for $160. They didn't go from white to black. The VCRs that we use, they didn't go from white to black. There are no American-made VCRs. The Zenith Electronic jobs that were in Chicago, they didn't go from white to black. They went to Mexico. Cheap labor undercutting organized labor. There are no American-made bicycles. Swing bicycles are made in Taiwan. Hear me, my friend. The 800,000 family farmers did not lose their farms to blacks or browns. The ConAgra, Cargill, the agri-giants consumed them. The little dog that used to listen to his master's voice the RCA amplifier. That little dog is gone. That was an English-speaking trained dog. The master now speaks Dutch and German and Japanese. That dog left, and so did those jobs. And I might add, the Dutch, the German, Japanese, they did not take our market. We sold it in a trade-off. We chose to make, we said, there is no basis for Asian bashing. The Japanese did not take our jobs. The Germans, the Dutch did not take them. We made a macho trade-off. You are not allowed to make missiles and B-1 bombers, the big stuff. You make little old stuff like chips, VCRs, Honda, Toyota, Saturn. You make little old stuff that everybody needs. We make big old stuff for which there is no consumer market. And so now we got weapons that nobody wants. And they're making products that they cannot make enough of. We must stand for racial justice. But don't stop there, social justice in this coalition. 40 million Americans with no health insurance. People dying in the emergency rooms because they don't have a green or yellow card to go upstairs. Good minds can't go to college in the world's richest country. Social justice. When the economic crisis, not because the poor want jobs and women want equality, the S&L crisis, $600 billion of legal thievery. They opened the vaults and then fired the guards, and now a banking crisis and then an insurance crisis. That must be a commitment to economic justice and fairness. Greed, not the poor willing to work, is the source of our economic crisis. Social justice, a commitment to rebuild America, make all of us better and not bitter and more secure. Social justice, peace. I was in the Middle East about 3 months ago. It's clear to me that we should stand for the restoration of Kuwaiti sovereignty, for Saudi security, for a resolution of the Iraqi-Kuwaiti conflict. We could not stand idly by while the strong devour the weak. We must honor international law and self-determination and human rights and economic justice. And those laws must be applied to Saddam Hussein in Kuwait. And sanctions are working. Military deterrence is working. If you're going to apply those principles in the New World Order, apply them to Kuwait, West Bank, Lebanon, Lithuania, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Grenada, Panama, Angola, South Africa, applied those principles around the world. We lose our moral authority selectively applying those principles. What about the blood in Tiananmen Square? What about the crushing of Lithuanians? What about apartheid in South Africa? Play the game of the New World Order by one set of rules and regain our moral authority in this world. What about the cost of this war? Administration officials estimate the cost of Persian Gulf deployment will range $25 to $30 billion for fiscal year 1991. Just to transport and maintain U.S. equipment and personnel, which is expected to soon reach 410,000. The Center for Defense Information estimates that if combat erupts, the cost of war would exceed $163 billion for 1991. $450 million per day, $19 million every hour. The Bush administration fiscal year 1991 budget for human capital programs, including education and job programs, $31.4 billion, down from $45 billion in 1980. The Children's Defense Fund estimates that in 1988, the cost of eliminating poverty in families with children would have been $26 billion. Today, $54 billion. A fraction of the cost of a shooting war. The estimated $82 million per day it will cost to transport, feed, and maintain the Persian Gulf troops is nearly 20 times the cost the Children's Defense Fund proposed. The U.S. Student Association estimates that the daily cost of Operation Desert Shield could give federal grants to 59,655 students, or assure 89,220 students college work-study jobs. Both programs have been cut over the past decade. There is a way out. And we need guided minds, not misguided missiles. There is a way out, a way to have peace. When we condemn the invasion of Kuwait, we're right. We say economic sanctions are working, we're right. I was there. He cannot expand beyond Kuwait. He has the hotels but no customers. The oil wells but no markets. Oil cannot get in, oil cannot get out. He can't grow. Sanctions are working. There are 3 articles in the UN resolution. We focused on 2. Article 1 condemned the invasion of Kuwait. Article 2, unconditional withdrawal. Article 3, resolve the Kuwaiti-Iraqi dispute. Let's focus for a minute on the zone of dispute. Unconditional withdrawal does not mean you ignore the zone of dispute. That was a dispute prior to the invasion. The invasion, annexation, occupation was the wrong way to resolve the dispute, but that was a recognized dispute, recognized by the U.S., Kuwait, and the UN. It had to do with oil pricing, oil gouging, land boundaries, and access to the sea. Why can't we be creative enough to agree to mutually no bombing during negotiations and after. There'll be a fair, credible court, world court, Arab court, UN court, to adjudicate the issues in dispute and proceed with the International Peace Conference. Now, why should that be for us so confusing? We're not talking about the Hussein Peace Conference. We're talking about the UN-sponsored International Peace Conference. It predates August 2nd. To ignore the peace conference is reverse linkage. It's saying, in effect, unless we end the occupation in Kuwait, we will not proceed with peace. What about of self-determination? The Feds occupy 50% of the city, and the diplomat is tax exempt. 60% of the income cannot be taxed at the source.